Okay, so no volunteers for pair programming, totally cool. I did want to show you guys some of the stuff that we can do for testing the command line. So what we've written to, all of our tests so far have been like very true unit tests. So we are exercising the classes directly. We're creating our new student object, and we're validating stuff about the says method, the toString method. And so all we're doing is interacting with that class, and that's a good unit test, right? This is what you do, and I think you can sort of see how we're building up the application, and we're taking baby steps, small bites of things. We're gradually building up that big long string of what the says method returns. That's only that's part of our program. That's one unit of our program is the student class and the says method. But really, if you go and look at the specification, there's also the whole command line part of it. Just like your programs have a command line aspect. Well, in order to test things from the command line, I've created a little API that will go and invoke the main method of a class. And it sort of simulates what you would run on the command line. And what it'll do is capture things that are written to standard output and standard error, and then let you validate them. So what you can do is not only test like your class, but you can also test the functionality of your main method. Yes, Sean?
One bug I found with this last time I took this class is don't do a catch-all, like a catch when you're catching exceptions.
Yes.
Don't catch a blanket exception. Catch very specific exceptions. Because the way this works is it throws an exception.
Yeah, right. It's all this magic. Okay, so like the way it works is that it uses something called a security manager, and because one of the things you can do in your program is that you can exit with an error code, right? You can say system.exit. That's supposed to exit the JVM, which you don't want to do in the middle of your test, right? You want your test to complete and then have the JUnit harness like capture the result, and then you want to assert things after it. So you don't want your main method to actually cause the VM to exit. And so what I did is I used this thing called a security manager. So if you go and look at the implementation, use this thing called a security manager. And so the security manager gets a call back to say, hey, the VM is about to exit. Does this user have permission to exit the VM? And so I basically implement that logic to throw a very special exception that then is caught by some outer code. Anyway, go and look at it. I get all jazzed up about it. I'm so proud of myself. Anyway, but you don't need to care about that. You just need to know how to use this API. And this same API is available to your projects also. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure the archetype creates a couple of test methods like this where it's like, hey, if you don't have any command line arguments, do a system.exit of 0. And that's what we're going to implement now. So do I have any changes to check in? No, I think we checked them all in. No. Okay, cool. So this test right here was created by the archetype. And it says, invoking the main method with no arguments has exit code of 1. Well, how do I implement this method? There's a method called invoke main, which is on this invoke main test case. I'm pretty sure I have, do I extend it? Yeah, so my test extends invoke main test case. And let's see here, do I have the source code working correctly? I don't. I need to fix that. Sorry about that. Okay, just say download sources. Does it know where to download them from? No. Okay. Invoke main test case. And so you can call the invoke main, and you give it this thing student.class. If in a couple of weeks you'll go and watch the lecture about Java reflection, the whole idea is that student.class represents not an instance of student, but the class itself. And so, okay, there's something called the class, and you can watch the lecture in a couple of weeks. But anyway, so I want to invoke. So what this code right here does is it uses a good amount of magic to invoke. Well, not magic, that reflection API, but it's to you it's magic. To invoke the main method of the student class. And so over here, here's main, which right now says system.out.println hello student. Yeah, that's cool. So invoke that main method, and it returns this object. And this is an object that I wrote. It's called main method result. And main method result has information like the exit code that was there with the VM, or hey, give me a string which is what was written to standard error. And so what this test does is it says, okay, invoke the main method. Oh, and by the way, this can take arguments. It has a variable number of arguments that you can pass to it, and those are the strings that are then sent to the main method. So it's as if you're invoking on the command line. It returns one of these main method results, and then you can insert something like the exit code. Like I expect that system.exit will have been called with a value of 1. So if I go and I run this method, it should fail because it expected an exit code of 1 but was null. Null meaning that system.exit wasn't called. Okay, so red, I want to make it green, and so I'll go to my main method, and I will say system.exit of 1. I'll rerun it, and it passes. And just to demonstrate that it does what I expect, I will do a Maven clean package, build it from the command line. I'll run my executable jar file. Sorry, that's kind of loud. Snapshot.jar. That'll run the main method with no command line arguments, and then, yep, exited with a code of 1. Cool. Okay, great. So now I've got it running. Quick check it in. Exit with code of 1 when there are no command line arguments. Okay, my next test is invoking main with no arguments prints missing arguments to standard error. Okay, so I'll unignore this one, run it, and it fails because it expected a string containing missing command line arguments, but nothing was written to standard error. Okay, that's cool. I can do that. I'm just going to be lazy and copy and paste this message, and so when, well, strictly speaking, this should be when there are no command line arguments, but we're doing the simplest thing that could possibly work. So we'll say system.error.println missing command line arguments. Run it here. So I'm calling system.error. Through the magic of the main method invoker, it doesn't really print it to like the console output. It prints it to in-memory buffer that is then returned by the getError, whose content is returned by the getError method on the main method result. I will try it again from the command line. Oh, cool. Hello, student, and then there was missing command line arguments. So, okay, all that seems to work. Okay, so anyway, so this this API allows you to work with the main method, and so then you can test not only the logic of your phone bill and phone call classes, but now you can also test what's there on the command line. When no command line arguments are specified. Commit. Okay. And now, so for instance, well, let's look at the specification again. So let's so I'd like to write another test for this. I guess we could say, well, I mean, I'll ask you guys, like, so when we think about testing the command line, what are some of the command line tests that we should write?
Proper number of arguments.
Oh, sure, yeah, right, proper number of arguments. Okay, so then what are some, what does that actually mean in terms of test cases? So like invoking main with only one argument prints, what, like missing gender to standard error. And so here I want main, and I just want one argument there. And so it's not going to be not contain that, but it should contain missing gender. So oops, don't want to commit it. I want to run it. Okay, let's run this. It failed because it expected missing gender and instead was missing command line arguments. Okay, so now let's go implement some command line parsing. So there's a pattern that I've been using for a long time for command line parsing. I don't know if it's the best or not. I mean, let's face it, I don't write that many command line programs in the real world. But it seems to work pretty well for me. So like what I do is I have a local variable for each of the command line parameters. So the first one is going to be name. Well, actually, and then I loop over the arguments that are passed in. And feel free to use the same sort of pattern in your own programs if it works for you. So I say if name is null. Oops, actually, I want to put it up here. That's the name of the student. Then assign it to assign that arg there. And let's see here, and gender is the next one. Else if gender equals null, then gender equals arg. We'll just leave it for there for now. And then let's see here. We want to change this logic to be, we want to print missing command line arguments if name is null. So if there are no command line arguments, we'll just say missing command line arguments and exit 1. Else if gender is null, so that if it wasn't filled in, then system.error.println missing gender, which I think matches what was in my test. Does. And then system.exit1. Resist the urge to refactor now. Run again. Yay, that one passed. I also want to make sure that all of them pass, so let's run all of them again. Yay, everything passed. There were 2 that were ignored. Red, green, refactor. So this is going to, so I want to refactor this stuff basically into like a method which is something along the lines of print error message and exit. So we'll make a new variable here, and so that was option command V for extract variable, and we'll call it message. And then we'll create a new method here, and that was option command M for create a method, and we'll call it print error and exit. Halt and catch fire. Oh, and it didn't do the thing where it detected it. Boo. I really like it when it does that, so I'm going to just do that here, message. And now we're going to extract that again, so print message, and print error message. Yeah. Error message and exit. Say what? That's interesting. I wonder why I didn't. Oh, it was one print and was one print line. Haha, there you go. Aw, IntelliJ. You're too intelligent for me. Okay. Print error message. She thought it was funny. Oh, look, there you are. Hey, wow, I could have just typed it. Okay. And then I don't need this variable, so I'm going to inline the variable, which is refactor inline or option command N. And it says inline the variable and remove, oh yeah, inline the reference, and yep, there, that reads a little better. And then I'll do that again down here. Cool, and make sure everything still runs okay. Thank you. Okay, cool. And what did I do? Okay, so basically print an error message if gender is missing. Okay. And now, let's see here. What else was on the command line? Oh, great, GPA. So now I can implement that test that I wanted to. about unparsable GPA results in error message. So I will unignore that. And so now let's implement it. So now, oh, and you know what? I might also want to assert that the exit code is 1 down there. Okay, and so here. Okay, so now, okay, what do we need to send to our main method? So Dave and then a gender, which actually, so we didn't really do anything with the gender yet, and so we'll need to probably validate it or all that stuff. Let's have a bad GPA. Bad GPA. And then I expect that it will print a string, something along the lines of invalid GPA, bad GPA. And exit 1. Let's run it. Failed. Because nothing was printed to standard error. Fair enough. Let's figure it out. Okay, what do we want to do here?
We need to add GPA.
Yeah. And so I think what I want to do. Okay, well, let's see here. So we need a GPA, double GPA. Equals, well, I can't have it equal null, because null is only for objects. Silly rabbit. Do I want it to be a string until I like it? Yeah, string it till you like it.
Sorry, that's idiotic.
It's not idiotic. That's software engineering. It's not. No, I agree. What do you say? Yeah. Right. So exactly. So it's like, even though eventually I want it to be a double, all I got is a string. And so yeah, I think the only way to make it work is to sort of save it off as a string. And so I probably don't want to call it GPA. I probably want to call it GPA string or something. Else if GPA string equals null, then GPA string equals arg. And then, right, and so it's like, okay, after I've got the name and the gender, so else if GPA string equals null, then print error. Okay, so if like it's missing, then missing GPA. And then, oh, let's do all the command line validation first and then do the data validation. So down here, it's like, by the time we get down here, it's like, yay, you've put enough command line arguments on there. And so then let's validate the GPA. So do you guys remember how to convert a string into a double? You assume correctly. Double dot, not that. What the hell is that? Double, that's all I want. Well, toString would go from a double to a string. We want the other way. Parse double. Parse double GPA string. Okay. What's going to happen? Oops, where's the run? Error while invoking main. Okay. Invocation target exception. Okay. Number format exception for input string. Bad GPA. So then, let's. Yeah, we gotta catch it. So, oh, good. I can just link back to the class right there. So we gotta wrap this in a try catch. Catch, and we'll catch that number format exception. And then let's see here, print error message and exit, and the message is invalid. What was it, all caps or little caps? I can't remember now. Yeah, it is all caps. And then this will be GPA string. Yay, passing. So you saw a couple of things there, like what happens when you get a number, an uncaught exception in your main method. It's actually wrapped in a couple other exceptions and is percolated up to the top level. But this is the kind of thing where now you can, if you've got logic like your data validation inside here, inside your main method, you can exercise all of that using these using this API. So, I'm trying to think. So, is there anything else? Okay, let me quick commit that. Validate the GPA passed on the command line. Any other? So let's see here. Okay, looking at this, let's take a couple minutes and brainstorm what other kinds of tests we'd want to write. So I'm not going to make you watch me. Well, I'm not making you do anything, but as evidenced by the 8 people over where I left. What other things should I test?
Negative GPA.
Negative GPA. That's cool. Yeah.
Huge GPA.
Huge GPA. That's right. You got GPA 5. Yeah. Yeah. So bounds for the GPA. Yeah, that's cool.
Too many command line arguments.
Yeah. Actually, can you have too many command line arguments? Right. I mean, I suppose it's like because you can take as I don't think there's an upper bound on the number of classes that you can take. But that's good, right? That's the thought. It's like, oh yeah, too many. It's like, oh no, there isn't too many.
At the university, they said how many credits you can take.
Yeah, well, we don't have credits here. Yeah, right. It's like how what's the bound of the problem? That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
If someone puts 2 names but forgets the quotes, find that,
Oh, okay, right. So like in this one, I gave this example of operating systems, which is a two-word class name. But yeah, because it's in double quotes, it's only the command line parser, the shell only sends that in as one element in the args array. So, right. Well, that's a good point. I don't think there's really a way to test that using this, right?
We have to have like a list of the possible classes there could be.
Well, that could be your error
Match it
statement.
up. Yeah, and you can compare it against that.
What was that?
That could be an error statement. Like if they put in too many arguments, you might suggest you're missing quotes someplace or
It
something.
can be like Clippy. Did you really mean French 101? Yeah, okay.
I miss it. Yeah.
I don't. It was annoying. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like, I like the way you're thinking, right? It's like, what are the boundary conditions? What's the worst that could happen? What's kind of the crazy input that maybe would be present there in the grading script for the class? Yeah. Yeah.
We have to make sure that for the gender, it's going to be something that you're allowed to use.
Right. Valid values for the gender. Right, not only in data validation, but then also making sure that it matches the gender pronoun here. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Make sure the GPA is a number.
Right. Yeah. Validating that it's a number like we did here. What else?
Are they allowed to take 0 classes?
Yeah. Right. What happens with 0 classes? And actually, that's the way you ask the question. Like, are they allowed to? Well, it's like, in a program like this, like, well, you get to make those decisions. And so then that's why it's good to have a test that sort of codifies that decision. So that if, maybe, you give the program to someone else and they're like, oh, I entered 0 classes and you printed out, take 0 classes. I really want that to be an error. Oh, okay, good. Then, you can implement, then you implement that functionality and then you expect the other tests to fail, which is what you want, because then that sort of like make sure that lets you that forces a conversation that ought to happen. Yeah. 0 classes. What else? Looking at the output. So I think we're talking about like validating things on the input side. What on the output should we validate? Things that we haven't gotten to yet. Right. Yep. Pronoun. Yep. Making sure that the pronoun, the gender of the pronoun matches the gender passed in on the command line.
You have to count the number of classes.
Yep. Counting the number of classes.
So you say it right, class or classes.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah. So the right pluralization of the word classes here. Yep.
Making sure it's grammatically correct.
Making
Based
what's
on make sure it prints the classes correctly grammatically based on the number of classes. So that you haven't taken 2 classes, it would be like algorithms. And
right. Yeah. Do you have the Oxford comma? Do you have the yeah? Do you have and yeah? Yeah. Good. 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 Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I can't think of anything else.
Where does he says this class is too much work?
Right. All students, their says method returns this class is too much work, and then the gender is based yeah. Cool. Okay then. That's the frame of mind that I recommend that you guys adopt as you're working on your project. And really, I think that's one of the big benefits of test-driven development, is that you're sort of, instead of like trying to envision the entire future and then going back after the fact and poking holes in things, test-driven development, especially unit test-driven development, because you're just focusing on a little piece of functionality, keeps you focused on all of the crazy edge conditions just for that one little part, right? And so I think, as you pointed out, like when Sean and I were pairing, it's like, okay, we're focusing on GPA. What's all the wrong things that can happen with the GPA? And what's the formatting, right? And let's let you have those conversations and focus just on that, as opposed to like trying to here again sketch everything out all at once, and then only later going back, oh yeah, right, what happens if you have an invalid GPA? Or oh yeah, what happens if, when you have this output? Then not only do you need to decide what you want it to do, then you need to go find where in the code, and it might be spread all over the place, where it is that you have to implement that. Anyway, that's why I like TDD. And pairing I like because it helps you, there's someone else who's thinking about that. You might have noticed that, right? Like when Sean was typing, I was sort of looking at what he was typing and not only finding like syntactic errors and stuff like that, but also I was thinking, oh, okay, there's an opportunity to refactor. Oh yeah, the next test that we need to write is this, this, and this. Okay. I think that's all I've got for tonight. Any parting thoughts, questions, things like that? No? Okay. Have a great week, everybody. Next week, you guys will be doing some coding. We'll go get the USB keyboards, bring them down. So if you've got a laptop, bring it next week. And in the meantime, stay cool. Project 1's due next week. Make more progress on the cones, please. You don't want to save those to the last minute because there are a lot of them. And there's a quiz too. Boy, I give you guys a lot of work, don't I? Anyway, have a great week, everybody. This class is too much work.